Welcome to session 3 of Unit 5. Session 3, Corporate Ethics, Values, Beliefs and Attitudes. At the end of this session, you should be able to explain what values and cultural values are. Identify dominant values and cultural values dimensions. Understand personal beliefs, values, and attitudes. Understand the types of values. Understand the meaning of attitude. The influence and problems with attitude. Understand the awareness of personal attitudes. What are values? Values can also be explained or defined as principles, standards, or qualities that an individual or group of people hold in high regard. So what you hold in high regard is what you call value. So principles, standards, qualities that you hold in high regard is what we call value. Attributes of value. We have the content attribute and intensity attribute. The content attribute is the mode of conduct or the end state is important. So to what ends meet are you trying to achieve? So the end game and the mode of conduct is important. Intensity attribute, just how important a particular content is. So the content attribute, how important it is, how the mode of conduct is important, is the intensity attribute. A value system is a person's values rank ordered by intensity, tends to be relatively constant and consistent. So here we are trying to say that someone's value system is measured or ordered by the level of intensity he orders to the content attributes, and it tends to be relatively constant and consistent. So your values do not change they don't change regularly. It's consistent and it's constant. Examples of values include manners, pride, clothes, behavior on the sports field, and family life. Sources of value include family, peers, religion, music, media, technology, culture. So and others as listed here. So from either of these sources, your value or your fundamental value would be developed. So one of them would have an effect on how or what you hold in high esteem as value. So your mode of conduct is going to be influenced by one of these sources, one or more, two or more of these sources. Dominant values are those that are widely shared amongst a group, community, or culture. So if you look at the sources of value, that the one that is most dominant amongst the sources of value is what we are going to call dominant value. So the most common shared amongst either of the sources that we just looked at. So if you go to family, what is the most common value that they share? If you go to a religion, what is the most common value that they share? The culture, what is the most common value that they share? That is what we term as a dominant value. Importance of values include providing understanding of attitudes, motivation, and behaviors to people as a whole, influence our perception of the world around us, represents interpretations of right and wrong, imply that some behaviors or outcomes are preferred over others. So values impact us to know and distinguish between right and wrong, to be able to determine what is preferred over other things. It motivates us and shapes our attitude, giving us understanding over how other people also behave. The top 10 work values employers look for. Strong work ethics. As employees, you should have the commitment to work strongly to achieve organizational efforts. Employers value employees who understand and possess willingness to work hard. Dependability and responsibility. The organization or the employer should be able to depend on you whilst you are also attaining or assuming responsibility for your duties in the organization. Possessing a positive attitude. You should possess a positive attitude towards work. That would increase job performance. Adaptability. The ability to adapt to the changing work environment of an organization. Honesty and integrity. Self-motivated. You should be self-motivated, moved to do things as you are being supervised or not. Motivated to grow and learn. Strong self-confidence is some of the things that employers look out for in employee values. Cultural values. Cultural values is standards of what is acceptable or unacceptable, important or unimportant, right or wrong, workable or unworkable, etc. in a community or society. So in a community, what they hold dominant also serves as what? A cultural value. So culturally, this is what they hold in high esteem. So it becomes part of their culture. Here we are looking at other forms of cultural values. We have universalism or particularism. The universalism here you adopt cultural values that is for the universal whole, like everybody. So universally, this is the culture that you adopt. Particularism here, relationship with individuals govern the kind of values that you have in the organization. We have individualism versus collectivism. The individualism, here you hold cultural values that is to your personal interest. Collectivism is to the collective initiative. So let's say a group of people, you hold a particular kind of culture. So you relate to that particular group of people. Affective versus neutral orientation. Affective means showing emotions openly and dealing with emotions. When you are dealing with problems, you use emotions to be able to what? Overcome some problems. So affective means using emotions as a form of cultural value. So the values that you adopt are mostly based on some particular emotions. Neutral, that one you are more rational and stoic in making decisions. You are patient in your approach. You are not affected by any emotions. Then we have the specific versus diffuse. Here, separate work relationship from a family relationship. So here you as an individual, you have a separate work value relationship from what? Family relationship. So you keep a separate family life and a separate work values as a human being. Then we have the diffuse um culture value. Here your value may seem too forward and too superficial. So it's for a common goal. So it's too forward. This is what I want. This is what I know. That is your value. Then we have the achievement versus ascription culture. So the achievement culture, people tend to acquire high standards or high status based on personal accomplishments in some culture. So based on some accomplishments in some culture, you seek to attain a high status. Then we have the ascription culture. Here, status and prestige are based more on ascribed characteristics as age, gender, family, among other things. We have past and present versus future. So your culture inclinement, your culture value inclinement is based on past and present values that you have, or based on future, as in versus future, what you expect, or whatever the future is, that's how your values are going to be adopted. You have the internal control versus external control. So for the internal control, individuals are in control of their own destinies. So their value is shaped because they know they are in control of their own destinies. External, nature or external forces control much of what should happen or would happen in an individual's life. Cultural value dimensions. Cultural value dimensions provide you with a perspective of culture for yourself, as well as a perspective of how others perceive their culture. So cultural value dimension provide you with how you see your culture and how others see your culture. So identity here refers to the attention of groups or individuals toward group needs versus individual needs, as well as towards individual achievements and interpersonal relationships. So what is your identity? How do you relate to other people in the group, and how do those individuals relate to you? That is what we mean by identity. What is your identity? How do you relate in a group? How do other individuals relate to you? As well as your individual achievement and interpersonal relationships determine who you are as an identity. Exploring your values. Exploring your values, just as we looked at the sources of values, you can also look at your race. Then you would know some values to hold dear. If you are black, you would know, if you are African, sorry, you would know some values to hold dear. If you are not an African, you have your own values. Your gender would show you some values to hold dear. So if you're a female, you know you shouldn't sit down and open your legs. If you're a male, you can sit down based on the trousers that you wear. You can sit down and open your legs or cross your legs, irrespective. Religion shapes your values. Culture, language, and everything in general above shapes your value as a human being. Types of values. We have the individual values. The individual value is more concerned about development of an individual personality. So what kind of values help you to shape your individual personality? Collective values. Solidarity of community or collective norms is more concerned here. So what is the solidarity? What is the group values that we have? That is what shapes what? Your values. Intrinsic values is related to the goals of life. What are the goals of life? What are the things that you want to do? So inwardly, what are the things that you want to do? That is what shape the kind of values that you should have. Instrumental values. The instrumental values is how you want to achieve some set of goals for yourself or for the organization at large. Functions of values. I'm going to pick them randomly. So functions of values include integration and fulfillment of man's basic impulses and desire. It helps to build up societies, integrate social relations. It helps them to have a great role in play in the conduct of social life. So with values, your conduct in social life is shaped. You're able to mold the ideal dimensions of personality and range and depth of your culture. They influence people's behavior and serve as criteria for evaluating the actions of others. Beliefs. What are beliefs? Beliefs are precious because they reflect who we are and how we live our lives. That's beliefs. They reflect who we are and how we live our lives. Classifying values. We have the terminal and instrumental values, and people in the same organization that hold both in high esteem. So the terminal values are desired end states of existence. In the end, terminal is end. So in the end, what are the desired states of existence that I want to have? What you would like to achieve during your life is what we call the terminal values. So those are what classifies the beliefs that you have, classify the kind of value that you can have. Instrumental values. Here you are having preferable modes of behavior or means of achieving one's terminal value. So the instrumental, what is going to help you achieve your end state existence? That's what we call instrumental. Instrumental is being helpful in doing something. People in same organizations or occupations or categories tend to hold similar values. So mostly we have some people are shaped by the kind of occupation that they have or the organization that they are within. They will depict some particular values as well. Linking personality and values to the workplace. Person, job, fit. So here, you as a person, you fit your values to the job that you're supposed to do. So here, let's look at it. Intrinsic differences in personalities. There are different types of jobs. People in jobs congruent with their personality should be more satisfied and have lower turnover. So here, what you hold dear as a person, what is within you, is going to be fitted with the job that you have to do. And you should know there are different types of jobs. So your value in a way may change to suit the job that you have to do. And people with different personalities are more satisfied and have lower turnover because they're able to fit with the job. So your job determines the kind of personality you should have, or your person determines the value that you use for the job. We have person, organization, fit. Here, you as a person, you fit your values to the organizational values. So here, the employee's personality must fit with the organizational culture. People are attracted to organizations that match their values. Mismatches will result in turnover. So where there's mismatch, you have different values and organization, you are unable to compromise and infuse, you are going to decide to leave the organization because the organization will not leave and leave you in the firm. You can use the 5 big personality types of value to fit into the organizational culture. Culture refers to the cumulative deposit of knowledge, experience, beliefs, values, attitudes, meanings, hierarchies, religion, notions of time, roles, spatial relations, concepts of the universe, and material objects possessed, among other things. So these are all the things that come up to sum up the culture of an individual. Culture from different perspectives. Culture is a system of knowledge. Culture is communication, and communication is culture, the way of life. Culture is symbolic communication. Culture, in its broadest sense, is cultivated behavior. Culture is a way of life of a group of people. Culture is a sum total of the learned behavior of a group of people. That is the tradition of the people. Culture is a collective programming of the mind that distinguishes the members of one group or category from another. Ethnocentrism is defined as a propensity to view one's own cultural values as right and those of others as wrong. Here, your cultural values, you put them higher or you think is the best aside other people's culture. You don't value other people's culture. You think what you know, your values as a person is better than someone else's. So here, you view someone else's culture as wrong, but you value your own culture as right. Hofstede's framework for assessing culture shows the five value dimensions. We have the power distance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity versus femininity, uncertainty avoidance, long term versus short term. Let's take it one after the other. So the power distance here remains the extent to which people's view power in societies and institutions. So here, how do you view power? How do you view power in the institution or the society? We have the high and low power distance. The high power distance is extremely unequal power distribution between those with status or wealth and those without status or wealth. So high power, it is what? Unequal power distribution between those with status or wealth and those without status and wealth. So the low power distribution is equal power distribution between those with status and wealth and those without status and wealth. So high people in the high class have unequal distribution with those in the low class. Then the low, there's equal power distribution, whether you are high class or low class. Individualism versus collectivism. Here, we're talking about how you make your decisions as an individual versus you making a decision in a collective group or from a collective viewpoint. We have the masculinity versus feminism. The masculinity here, we are trying to say that society values work roles as achievements. So your work roles are a form of achievement for you. Power, control. Femininity is, however, to some extent, to which there is little difference between the roles of men and women. Femininity, there is little difference between the roles of men and women. But for masculinity, we are saying that society value work roles of achievement, power, and control. Then you know that you are in masculinity cultural values. Then we have the uncertainty avoidance. The uncertainty avoidance here, what you are trying to say is that the extent to which society feels threatened by uncertain and ambiguous situations and tries to avoid them. So uncertainty avoidance, you feel unsettled about uncertain situations and ambiguous situations, and you try to what? Avoid them. So high uncertainty avoidance includes where a society does not like ambiguous situations. They don't like ambiguous situations. But a low uncertainty avoidance is where people accept ambiguous situations. Now let's look at the long and short term. For the long and short term, we are trying to say that a national culture attributes that emphasizes the future for the long term. So a national culture attribute that emphasizes the future. But the short term is more about present, now, here. But the long term is the future, thrift, and persistent. So in the long foreseeable future. The influence of attitude in the organization. Attitude refers to a lasting group of feelings, beliefs, and behavior tendencies directed towards specific people, groups, ideas, or objects. So the attitude is how people see you. You leave a lasting impression on people. So a group of feelings, your beliefs, and behavior tendencies directed towards specific people, groups, or ideas. So how people see you is what we mean by your attitude. An attitude is a belief about something. So someone has a belief about something that the person aligns it with how you behaved towards him or her. The attitudes that we feel very strongly about are usually called values. So if you have an attitude that you feel strong about, that's what you're going to determine or classify as values. The problem with attitudes is we ignore inconsistent information. Sometimes when some informations are inconsistent, we tend to what? Ignore them. However, it could be important. Awareness of personal attitudes. To understand oneself better, you have to be aware of what you hold high as values, what you do to others, how others see you. Awareness is very important. Respecting the beliefs, attitudes, and values of others is also very important as a person so that people can respect your attitude. We've come to the end of session 3. We have learned what values and cultural values are. We've learned about personal values, belief, and attitude. We've learned about the types of values. We've learned about the meaning of attitude, the influence and problems with attitudes. Thank you. See you in the next session.